At the beginning of the story, we see a former Finnish commando. This takes place right after the end of World War II. The ex-commando, Korpi, is standing at the Soviet Union border with his dog. A guard carefully examines his passport for a long time and finally allows him a pass. The next morning, Korpi arrives near his old home, where his family had been brutally killed during the war. He looks at the house closely and breaks down in tears as he remembers his family. Inside, he finds an old photograph of them. Meanwhile, in Siberia, Soviet Red Army commander Igor is released from prison. A senior officer tells him that his unit committed terrible crimes during the war. They burned entire villages and mercilessly killed civilians, including Korpi's family. Because of this, Korpi took revenge by killing more than 300 Russian soldiers and became known as Sisu. People believed he was immortal. The Russian army also learns that Korpi is somewhere inside their territory. They promise to release Igor and reward him with a large sum of money if he kills Korpi. On the other side, Korpi spends the entire day tearing down his house. He loads all the good into his truck and burns the useless scraps. Then he and his dog head back toward the border. After driving for a few hours, Korpi notices that an army jeep is blocking his path. When he looks back, another jeep is approaching from behind. A soldier asks for his passport and takes him to an officer sitting in the second jeep. The moment Igor sees the passport, he realizes that this is his target. Igor sends one of his men out, holding a lit bomb in his hand. Another soldier pulls out a knife. Korpi waits calmly in his truck for the soldier to approach. As soon as the man gets close, Korpi suddenly slams the truck door into him. The bomb explodes in the soldier's hand, setting him on fire. Korpi then reverses his truck, running over the soldier coming from behind. The man's body crashes straight through Igor's jeep window. Another soldier immediately starts firing. Korpi charges forward, disarms him, and pulls him quickly inside the truck. He then crushes the army jeep as well. With a single punch, Korpi knocks the soldier unconscious and speeds away. Igor calls for backup, summoning a third truck. Soon, both vehicles begin chasing Korpi, while an explosion goes off behind them. When the captured soldier regains consciousness, Korpi knocks him out again and takes his weapon. There aren't many bullets left, so Korpi grabs ammunition from the soldier's pouch and begins reloading. The soldier wakes up again, and Korpi forces him to load the magazine while keeping the gun pointed at him. The terrified soldier drops a few bullets in panic. Korpi soon stops near the ruins of an old building and releases the soldier. Igor senses a possible trap and tells his companion to stay inside the vehicle. However, the men from the third truck immediately step out and they shoot the released soldier. This reveals their location, and Korpi swiftly shoots them in the head. Korpi then fires at Igor's jeep tire. Igor orders his companion not to move, but the man ignores him and aims his gun at Korpi. The moment he shifts, Korpi shoots him straight through the head. From that distance, Korpi fails to recognize Igor and leaves him alive, driving away in his truck. Later, Igor changes the jeep's tire while waiting for reinforcements. Soon, his men arrive on 4 motorcycles, and together they resume the pursuit. Within minutes, Korpi changes his route, but the pursuers follow the tire tracks and quickly surround him. Korpi fires at one biker, but the helmet absorbs the bullets. The biker fires back, and Korpi narrowly escapes. Only his cheek is grazed. The distraction causes him to briefly lose control, and his truck veers off the road. After struggling, he regains control and returns to the highway, but he is soon surrounded again. Korpi remains sharply focused. He suddenly notices one motorcycle fall without a rider. Realizing that the biker has climbed onto his truck, he understands the man is walking along the stack toward the front to silently kill him. Hearing the faint footsteps, Korpi dodges just in time. He suddenly slams the brakes, causing the attacker to fall. As the truck moves forward again, the man grabs the grill to save himself and find a chain with a hook. Climbing onto the hood, he tries to attack using it. Korpi evades again and sharply turns the truck, throwing the man off completely. As he lies on the road, Igor's jeep runs him over. Another biker opens fire, but Korpi rams a parked vehicle and pushes it toward the biker, causing a massive explosion that kills him. A different soldier jumps from his motorcycle onto the truck and reaches the window, attempting to climb inside. He attacks Korpi and nearly pushes him out of the truck while grabbing control of the steering wheel. At that moment, the last biker approaches to shoot Korpi, but Korpi quickly snatches his gun and throws it away. Then he pulls a bomb from the driver's belt, shoves it into the motorcycle's tire, and moments later, a powerful explosion eliminates yet another enemy. Then Korpi moves toward the front of the truck. Korpi pulled out the chain, wrapped it around the driver's neck, and threw him out of the truck, reclaiming control. Then he activated the chain mechanism, and it began spinning. The chain dragged the man straight toward the hood, but his head was still stuck in the grill. The force kept tightening until his head was violently torn from his body. With all the bikers dead, Igor moved in himself. One by one, he began throwing bombs onto the stacked wood in the truck, trying to set it on fire. This enraged Korpi. He activated the bombs, still strapped to the headless corpse, and hurled the body toward the other vehicle. The explosion forced Igor to jump out of his Jeep just in time. Korpi drove deep into the forest, trying to put out the flames. Meanwhile, Igor called for more reinforcements. After a while, Korpi stopped the truck to extinguish the remaining fire. He gave his dog some water and poured the rest over the overheated engine. When he touched the wound on his cheek, a small bullet fragment came out in his hand. Just then, 2 fighter planes flew overhead. Seeing them, Korpi quickly picked up his dog, put him inside the truck, and drove off. As the planes opened fire, Korpi swerved off the road to avoid the attack and quickly drove into a wooden shed for cover. He waited there briefly, but soon the planes began firing at the shed as well. One of the planes climbed into the sky and then dove sharply, dropping a bomb on the shed. At the last possible second, Korpi floored the truck and escaped the explosion. He had tied pieces of fallen wood from the shed to the back of his truck, which shielded it from the gunfire. He then took a narrow path through the forest. One of the planes swooped low and continued firing relentlessly. Showing quick thinking, Korpi suddenly slammed on the brakes. The pilot couldn't react in time, and the plane crashed ahead. Korpi waited for a moment, and when no sound followed, he drove over the wreckage and continued on. At the edge of the forest, he looked up at the sky again, surprised to see nothing there. He resumed his journey, but as he drove past a cliff, the second plane reappeared. The pilot began firing wildly. Soon, however, the plane ran out of ammunition. The pilot decided to crash the plane directly into the truck. Seeing this, Korpi shot at the straps holding the wood in place. Several logs fell in front of the truck, forming a ramp. The plane slid over the ramp, soared above the truck, and crashed further ahead. The pilot had already jumped out before impact. When the pilot landed, he fired at Korpi, but none of the bullets hit. Soon, he ran out of ammo as well. Korpi started walking toward him, but suddenly stopped when he saw the pilot smiling. Korpi realized another plane was coming. He quickly loaded the wood back onto the truck and sped away. The plane began bombing the entire area. The smiling pilot was caught in the blasts and killed. The explosions caused the truck to slide off the cliff and plunge into the water below. Fortunately, the truck did not immediately fill with water, allowing Korpi and his dog to keep breathing. But soon the vehicle began to flood. Korpi quickly opened the door and pushed his dog out so it could swim to the surface. He then moved to the back and untied all the logs. In the water, he saw his family photograph floating before him. He stared at it until he lost consciousness. After some time, Korpi's body rose to the surface, supported by a piece of wood. His dog swam to him and helped him regain consciousness. Meanwhile, 2 soldiers were searching the area by boat. They informed Igor that they had found the truck, but there were no bodies and no wood. On the other side, Korpi had used the logs to build a raft. Soon, he and his dog safely reached the shore. The entire area was littered with war wreckage and corpses. Luck seemed to favor Korpi again when he found an abandoned tank loaded with bombs. Meanwhile, Igor waited at the Soviet border station with several soldiers, anticipating Korpi's arrival. Soon, the tank appeared, loaded with wood and spewing black smoke as it advanced. After lighting the fuse on one of the bombs, Korpi drove the tank toward the border. Soldiers opened fire, but their bullets were useless against the armored vehicle. Korpi then drank some of the tank's fuel and sprayed it into the engine through a pipe, increasing its speed. Just as the tank was about to hit the border barrier, he activated the bomb whose fuse he had lit earlier. The explosion launched the tank over the barrier, crashing down on the other side. The stacked wood tumbled off, and parts of the tank broke apart. Korpi was now seriously injured. His dog helped keep him conscious. Realizing he would be captured if he stayed, Korpi bit off the handle of his knife so he could more easily hide the blade. He then sent his dog into the forest, so at least it could survive, and climbed out of the wrecked tank himself. Igor was eager to shoot him, but at that very moment, his senior officer arrived. His senior officers arrived and ordered that Korpi be kept alive. Furious, Igor dragged Korpi by the leg, then stomped on his head until he lost consciousness. Sometime later, Korpi was being transported on a train bound for Siberia. A soldier tortured him, repeatedly shocking him with electricity. Once the train finally started moving, Igor sent the soldier away and began telling Korpi a story. He said that out of all the people he had killed, he remembered only one, a small boy who stood in front of him with nothing but a knife, trying to protect his mother and brother. Hearing this, Korpi's entire body trembled with grief and rage. He realized Igor was talking about his own family. Igor continued, saying he had cut Korpi's family into tiny pieces and fed them to stray dogs. He mocked him, saying, "You're not some great commando. You're just unlucky. In Siberia, I'll kill you like a dog." After Igor left, Korpi screamed in fury. His hunger for revenge had reignited. He twisted his body, braced his legs against the ceiling, and pushed with all his strength until he managed to free himself. The soldiers outside heard the noise, but started arguing over who should go inside to check. Meanwhile, Korpi tried to retrieve the blade he had hidden inside the flesh of his leg. When one soldier finally entered, Korpi pretended to be unconscious. The second soldier waiting outside grew uneasy because no sound came from inside. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed from within, followed by knocking on the door. The soldier outside opened a small window and saw his partner's face. "Everything okay?" he asked. The man nodded. When he opened the door, he saw that Korpi had split the other soldier in half and was using his body like a puppet. Terrified, the soldier immediately jumped off the moving train. Korpi dropped the stolen gun and slicked his blood-soaked hair back. He roared like a lion. Meanwhile, in the VIP coach, officers were calmly enjoying dinner. Igor demanded his payment so he could leave, but the officers told him to stay and celebrate the success. At the same time, Korpi reached a freight car filled with wood. He grabbed an axe and moved into the next car, where several young soldiers were asleep. He crept quietly so as not to wake them. Suddenly, one soldier opened his eyes, but before he could react, Korpi slipped into the next car, where more soldiers were sleeping. A guard entered unexpectedly. Korpi immediately threw the axe into the man's face, killing him silently. As he turned, another soldier woke up. Korpi lifted the man's bunk and pinned him down to prevent any noise, repeatedly stabbing him until he was dead. Then the train jolted, and a sleeping soldier dropped a liquor bottle. It shattered on the floor. No one woke up, but Korpi had to walk across the broken glass. He suppressed his pain. Blood, dripping from the upper bunk, fell onto a soldier sleeping below, waking him. Korpi quickly hid under another bed. The pain from the glass was unbearable, yet he didn't make a sound. His hand even got caught in a rat trap by accident. At that moment, the dead soldier's bunk broke and the body fell onto the man below. The terrified soldier screamed, waking everyone else. Korpi dashed toward the exit, locked the door from the other side with his axe, but the next car was filled with soldiers on duty. So Korpi climbed onto the roof of the train. Unfortunately, he slammed into a water tower pipe and crashed through the roof into the very car full of armed soldiers. They all raised their weapons. Thinking quickly, Korpi used the fallen pipe as a shield. The soldiers' bullets ricocheted and struck two of their own men. Korpi grabbed their weapons and shot several more. a pile of bodies formed, shielding him from further gunfire. He stayed hidden until they ran out of ammunition, then emerged and gave them no chance to reload. Hearing the chaos, Igor left his table to investigate. Seeing gunfire in another coach, he decided to detach that car from the train. After all, he hadn't been paid yet. Korpi stepped outside and saw Igor's section of the train pulling away, but he also knew there was a missile aboard. Meanwhile, Igor returned to the dining car, slit one officer's throat, then shot the rest, sparing only their boss. Terrified, the boss handed him a suitcase full of money. Igor smiled and shot him too. In the detached coach, soldiers who had awakened were shocked by the massacre Korpi had left behind. As they stepped outside, the missile activated, its flames burning several soldiers alive. Korpi rode the missile as it sped forward and crashed directly into Igor's train car. He blasted through the doorway and immediately lunged at Igor. A brutal fight began. They used everything around them as weapons. After a long struggle, Igor gained the upper hand over the already injured Korpi. He pinned him under a table and tried to leave with the money. But Korpi came back, and their fight spilled into the kitchen. Igor tried to drown Korpi in the sink. They stabbed at each other with forks. After more blows, Igor slammed Korpi to the ground, beat him with a heavy tool, then threw him outside. Korpi landed near the missile. Igor mocked him, asking, "What's your last wish? Maybe I'll grant it before you die." But Korpi spat out the missile's main bolt from his mouth and pulled the brake on his own train car. The missile shot straight into the train, piercing Igor's skull and causing a massive explosion. At the Finnish border, two guards heard a strange sound. Suddenly, Korpi arrived in a vehicle loaded with wood. He showed his burned passport and was allowed to cross. Sometime later, Korpi was building a new home in the forest. His dog suddenly started barking. A group of strangers approached him, and Korpi prepared to fight, but they had not come to attack. They had come to help. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.